This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day. Carefully crafted for you by humans. So meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Fully Managed. Do you know what we do in this podcast? We talk about marketing and business tips, and we assist you guys in your business journeys. You know me, the host, Daniela, Penji's partnership coordinator, and today we have a really cool guest, Tasha Penwell. Hi, Tasha. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. I think it's super cool to have an educator on the podcast today. I usually have a lot of business people, but I never have someone who is I guess, well-versed in the art of teaching, which is what the podcast is all about. So I'm really excited for this. But to get started and kind of breaking the ice a little bit before we get into the nitty-gritty, I have a small game prepared for us to play today where I'm just going to ask you would you rather questions and just tell me which ones you prefer.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, cool. So the first one is, would you rather always have to speak in rhyme or whisper for the rest of your life?
So the question was, do I have to speak in rhyme or a whisper? Is that what you said? Rhyme.
Rhyme. Cool. Rhyme. Would you rather have a pet dragon or a dolphin?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I love the ocean. I love the water, but the dragon is cool. So I want to go with dragon just because of the cool factor.
Dragons can also fly, I think. Would you rather be able to teleport or fly, but only 5 feet of... Oh, wait, no. Would you rather be able to teleport to only places you have never been to or fly, but only 5 feet above the ground?
I think I'd rather teleport because I love to travel, but sometimes just getting there is like, ugh.
I know. It would save so much time. I could be able to wake up 5 minutes before going somewhere without a problem. I love the teleporting power idea. Would you rather have free coffee for life or free books for life?
Free coffee or free books? Oh, that's a tough one. I'm going to say coffee because I get headaches if I don't get it, and then I don't feel like reading.
Yeah. I agree with coffee. I feel like I spend so much money on those coffee cups from Starbucks and places like this. If I could just do that for free, my finances would go up. I feel like I can illegally download books more. Don't do that. I'm saying this on a live podcast, admitting to my crimes. That's terrible. Last one. Would you rather travel to the past and hang out with your ancestors or to the future and meet your great grandkids?
Oh, that's an interesting one. I have a son. He's 25 and he's dating a girl with a couple of kids. And I'm just so excited about being the grandma thing already. But I would say go to the future. Just kind of the reasons for it is sometimes, I have their picture of my son and his girlfriend's little girl. And it's whenever things get hard, it's they're my inspiration, because whatever I'm building now will help them in the future. So I think in the future, and just kind of give me that added motivation. And sometimes, things get tired, frustrated, etc. You're building the groundwork for the future gens.
That's really sweet. I don't have kids. I'm not married, so I don't think I would go into the future, but I would go into the past because my mom has talked to me a lot about her grandmother specifically. Mm-hmm. She has a lot of memories with her, and I would want to meet her.
Yeah. That's interesting. That was a hard one because my mother's mom, she's from Mexico, and I mean the whole different, society and vibe and all of the culture. That would be very cool as well. I mean, that's definitely a hard one.
I didn't know you were Latina too. So I'm from El Salvador, so you have a little bit of that in you. Okay, cool, Tasha. So that was really cool to get to know you a little bit. But for people who don't know what you're about, I did say that you were an educator at the beginning, and people might not have any context on that. Tell us a little bit about yourself. We already know you want a pet dragon and to be able to go into the future, but tell us about what you do. Everything else that we got to know about you.
So it's it's a variety of things. One of the full-time gig is I'm an assistant professor at Ohio University, and I teach management information systems. And we just finished our semester this week, and that included management information systems. The way I describe it is technology, and people, technology, processes, and people. And so a big part of that is marketing. So I have some marketing majors in there. And I know sometimes when they first came in, they were like, why is this relevant for me? But it's like, it is. Just go with me on this. It is. So I teach at Ohio University. I also have a couple of side businesses that I've been doing for a few years now. I did them full time before starting at OU last fall. One is Bites and Bits, which is more focused on education, with the specific goal of providing improving the digital literacy and increasing interest in computer science in the rural areas. I grew up rural. I love living rural. I have no desire to leave rural environment. But there's also some opportunities that are kind of missed because of the fact that we do we're in a rural area. So my focus with Bites and Bits is kind of bridge that digital divide. The other side of things is pretty nerdy digital marketing, which is the digital marketing. I provide those type of services to other small businesses, and that is my niche, small businesses. I don't have a desire to work with larger agency type of things. And the particular niche on that is most of my clients, for websites, because everybody needs a website. But also other things such as augmented reality, developing filters for to help promote their brand or their business or something more engaging. I'm also Alexa skills and things of that nature. Just trying to do a little bit. Maybe I've been also exploring Adobe, so I've been using different Adobe tools for the Premiere, Rush, Illustrator, Photoshop, just to kind of create some additional things, additional content, visual aids for the client. So to wrap it up, 3 things: a teacher at OU, and have 2 small businesses. One is focusing on education, and the other one is a digital marketing. You're muted, hon.
I always do that. Sorry, my dog is snoring at the bottom, so I mute myself sometimes when people talk. And I forget. But what I was super interested in when we were doing research on you is how much you are involved in sort of fostering generations, like newer generations, into the tech world. And I am curious, like, to ask you about, because I feel like I've seen this sort of narrative happening a lot regarding like Gen Z and I guess younger millennials of how they're sort of apathetic. I saw this guy talking about how this younger generation is, even though they're growing up and they grew up with technology,
Mhm.
they simultaneously know a lot about it but don't know anything. Because like also like schools and teachers and stuff, they tend to think, oh, we don't need to teach them anything because they already know how to use like
Yes.
iPads and stuff like that, right? And how like this guy he was going on this huge thing about how it's concerning because these people are going to be the future doctors and scientists and engineers and people that are going to sort of move progress. But there's like a generational thing where like they're all just kind of either not learning
Mhm.
or not interested, and there's like a gap. And I'm curious, as someone who's in the field, to ask you how you feel towards this topic and how that sort of affects your experience.
I think that's 100% right on because, like I said, I teach at OU, and I remember, my first time teaching this particular class was last semester, and I've taught computer science before. My background, my degrees are in IT. My master's is in information systems management. And so I know the distinction between the two, between IT, computer science, and MIS. And I'm teaching the MIS class, and I, getting the first day, kind of get the feels, talking, kind of get to know the students a little bit. And I asked them, it's like, what's their biggest fear, or what, aspirations from the class? And a lot of them, it's like, they don't know programming. I was like, you don't need to know programming. I was like, oh. They said, I'm stuck at math. They said, I'm horrible at math. It's like, me too. So it's like, and then after like the second or the third class where I had the same conversation with different sections, and before I asked the question, it's like, who thinks that this is a programming class? And all of them raised their hands. I'm like, it's not. And so I created a chart. It's like, this is tech, this is IT support, this is computer science programmers, this is MIS, this is where we're at. Notice it does not have programming. Now, there are some things if you want to do it well, like Python and SQL, but that's further down the road. But this is not hardcore computer science. I've taught that. This is not it. So that kind of alleviated some of their concerns, like a visible sigh of relief. And I'm like, okay, so that's clear. But as you said, it's like, these are the tech generation. They grew up using the technologies, the tablets, and watching things, but they're still, I think the user experience is like where they're used to just touching the buttons, and they didn't have to necessarily think about what goes on behind the scenes, because whenever I grew up, it was not quite as,
intuitive. Yeah.
And so, but I think that as like they're just so used to using tech, they didn't really have to kind of think about how it works, or just like the fear. I think another thing is a fear of failure. Like they just get afraid it's like something doesn't work, or just like they mess something up, or I don't even know. I think another thing also, just like Microsoft. So I'm on the advisory board for one of the local high school trade schools around here, and for the information technology course program. And we had an advisory board meeting a couple of weeks ago, and they was asking, it's like, what do students need to know when they graduate? And I kind of laughed. It's like, everything old is new again, because they don't know Microsoft.
Yeah.
It's like everything went to Google, which is great because it removed a lot of the barriers. Having said that, everybody's using Chromebooks and just web-based, and everything else is like, if they have to do something Microsoft-based, they struggle with it. They struggle with using,
No, I was just saying that's interesting, because I think that, like, yeah, a lot of stuff is Google-based, but I think Google Sheets, Google Docs, they're pretty similar to Microsoft. So if you know how to use those, it should be easy to transition to Microsoft. That's my logic.
Well, that is true. I mean, that's a great, Google Sheets is a great starting point. But the thing that usually kind of tricks them up is saving it, because with Google, it's just saved in the cloud. You just go to the cloud, you log in. But if they're saving it to a device, and like a colleague of mine was telling me that he had needed to provide some help with some students, they were saving a file, but it was saving to their computer, and they didn't know where it was going. And he was like, file save as.
That is so basic. That's terrifying. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm Gen Z, but I think I have a different perspective, because I'm from a third world country. So technology arrives here late. So we were still kind of having to use old tech. When I was in high school, they were teaching us in like Windows 97 computers. So I think I was learning that. But I can't believe that they don't know something so basic. I mean, that's very concerning.
Yes. And I asked the students, because that's one of the areas that I have that I'm researching on. And I was asking my students in just like an informal conversation, is, do you feel like what you learned in high school prepared you for either the workforce or in college today? And some was like, eh. And the biggest things that they kind of said of their pain points is everything in high school was Google, Chromebooks, Google Work, Google Workspace. So when they came into college and everything is Microsoft based and Microsoft Teams, which is its own, little, kind of
Yeah,
give
like that.
love it.
I hate it. Yeah. I prefer Slack. I don't like Microsoft Teams. I don't like the platform. It's ugly, in my opinion.
My default is Google Meets. It does not have as many bells and whistles, but it does the job.
Yeah, Google Meets. Yeah. I like Google Meets. Microsoft Teams is like you have to go through so many hurdles just to get there. But yeah, like I agree.
Yeah, and it's like they felt like that was their struggle point, is like trying to learn Microsoft. And then with Microsoft, there's like the app version of Microsoft, and then there's a download version of Microsoft, and they have different features. So just having that distinction, or using the app or using, like the downloaded version of Microsoft, because the downloaded version has additional features beyond just the app. So kind of going back to like what you were saying, it's like this is these are the generation that utilizes technology the most, but they also have the most fear of it. And that's the irony of that to me. And I think that's kind of where I went back to, like, bridging that digital divide in the rural areas, because again, like that's where I'm from. And I know some things are kind of lacking there, and that's not to the fault of, anybody. It's just like, it's a lot. Technology moves so quickly, and it's almost impossible for the teachers to, stay on top of it. I remember I had a conversation with my dean at a former institution that I worked at. And I was a little bit in frustrated mode. And I remember having a conversation with him. It was like, no disrespect to like math teachers, but 2 + 2 always equals 4. Okay.
Yeah.
Technology is constantly moving.
Yeah.
To stay on top of that, in addition to the other responsibilities that I have. So, it's a moving target. And when you're a teacher and you have all these other responsibilities, it's difficult to stay on top of that moving target.
It totally makes sense. I think I'm trying to think back to like when I started working like in corporate. I think what caught me off guard was probably when I started like my first real job. I graduated from college and I was kind of just jumping around. I had no idea what I was doing. And I was going, from like job to job. I actually think I worked for like, I remember I did a bunch of odd things until I found like a secure thing. And then in my first real job, I remember like they made me do like everything was Microsoft based there. And I was pretty well versed in like basic Microsoft. I could do PowerPoint, I could do Excel, I could do Word pretty well. I mean, Excel is its own whole thing. So like I'm not gonna say I was an expert, but I knew enough to get by. If that makes sense. Like I knew basics. I think what I had no idea what to do was Outlook. And we were using a lot of Outlook because here's the thing, when I was in school, I didn't have to ever check my email. When I was in high school, my email was also kind of like there, but I don't like remember being super involved into like reading emails from school. And I went to high school and college pre-COVID. So I think before things had been like so digitally involved as they are now, because I think COVID kind of changed that. But I didn't really have a lot of experience with emails. Like I remember having an email address and barely using it. And just having it full of ads and subscriptions to like random things because I just never went on my personal email. Much less like a work or school email. So I had no idea how to interact with Outlook. It was super confusing. I didn't know what CCing meant. I didn't know what forward meant. That is how stupid I was. And it was embarrassing because I had to ask people, like, because someone would be like, hey, can you CC me on that email? And then they'd be like, what do you mean? So I think like, yeah, I can kind of relate to that. I feel like I also don't think that we ever had any sort of emailing classes ever in college or high school, or like terms like this that are really important. That I think we should have probably had of like, like what consists of because I think like formatting for emails is also so different than if you're writing like an essay. And at that point, that's what I was used to doing, right? Like my essay or like my midterm type of thing, but I was not used to like talking to someone and having to find a different tone of voice and not necessarily having to do that formal speech and send this long ass paragraph. It was more about like being brief. You can be friendly depending on the culture or whatever. I kind of had to learn that through work. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I definitely grew up with technology, and I'm trying to think of like, I just never used my email. I was more like on social media because I think that's what young people were doing.
Yeah, definitely. Social media, it's kind of really completely changed the world that we live in the past 10, 15 years, however long it's been since social media kind of, became a thing.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I think like the thing is that most people nowadays don't know a world without it. I think they don't know anything prior to social media. You talk to like a 15-year-old and then they're like, well, how did you connect with people if you didn't have Instagram and stuff? Or like, they can't fathom the idea of like Facebook being the dominant social media platform, or basically the only one at the time. Because they're already growing up with so many platforms and they're so much more sophisticated and they've evolved so much from like when they just started. So I think that it definitely does affect that. What I'm curious to like hear from you is if you think of like these students or these young people are going to be able to keep up, like are they going to, do you see people in there with potential to continue to be growing and learning and teaching others and like moving towards that future? Do you think like, because I've also heard people talk about how Gen Z is so apathetic and so kind of like useless and like a lot of hate to Gen Z about how like this generation is not going to like create anybody that's worthwhile trusting with like doctors or engineers or anything like that. But I mean, I think from someone who's constantly in interaction with them, do you see people there that are like, promising?
I do. I don't think it's too dissimilar than, like the older generation. You're going to have individuals who have that characteristics internally with them, that they're more empathetic, that they do want to be healers, talking about the doctors. They do want to be educators. They do want to do those things. Now, I think that characteristic is probably intrinsic. It's just something either they're born with, that they learn at an early age, and they grow up with that particular mindset and they take that path. Now, I think some things may change in the way that they approach it, or the way they achieve those goals to be like the educators or the doctors. They may need to learn from an older generation, but I think it's just exposure. I mean, it's nothing, it's not really anything dissimilar to what, in my current generation is. It's just exposure to different things. If you don't know what you don't know, and if you're never exposed to it, then, it is what it is until somebody tells you different. I think it's just like an education and just those experiences that they get if they want to learn how to be an educator, if they want to learn how to be a physician. I used to work at a medical college, and I worked directly with medical students and residents. And they do have a different mindset. They are a different type of personality.
Yeah.
But I think, at the core, they do want to be healers. They want to be helpers. And I think, I think the same thing is with the educators. They want to be helpers, maybe not necessarily healers, but they want to be helpers. So I think overall, I don't have a concern of them not having the empathy to do those things. I think they just need to make sure that they get exposed to things beyond the screen.
Yeah, no, I get that. I feel like I learned I think like my take on this is that also I think immaturity plays a lot into what people are like when they're very young. I think as you get older, you kind of forget how you were when you were younger, right? But when I think of myself when I was in school, like in college and maybe late high school, all I cared about was partying and having fun and being with my friends. And I had a couple boyfriends. When I had the boyfriends, I cared about that. Yeah, and like I'm so childish. I was so immature. Even when I graduated from high school and college, and then I moved on. Like I think my first few jobs, I was so insufferable because I was so immature.
Uh-huh.
And I think like I was like, well, yeah, I mean, I think that's just like a part of you're dealing with 20-year-olds.
Mhm.
You're gonna get that kind of mindset.
Mhm.
And I think as they experience life and as they get older, that kind of changes. And
Yeah.
that I think for me at least, the pivoting point was finishing college and then feeling like I don't know what to do with my life anymore. And then having a like a quarter life crisis of what the fuck, what am I going to do now? And then um, realizing as I got into work that I like had to start thinking more seriously about my life, about my skills, about what was needed. And then you start like I think for me at least, I started to look back into everything that I had done up to that point with a
Mhm.
more serious eye than I did ever whilst I was in it. So I think that a lot of people are probably going to have a similar experience. At least that's my take.
And people probably, I mean, my background was a little different. I joke it was like it was a lot of drama with a dash of trauma. So I was when I was 17, I was my dad pressed unruly child charges against me, and I went to the children's home, married my first husband at 19, married my first husband at 18, had my baby at 19.
Oh wow.
Fast forward a few years, and I quit college because I just had no interest in it. And I had 2 full ride scholarships from high school, and I was just like, I'm not interested in learning. I'm not interested in it because nothing like intrigued me, and like nothing like kind of kept my interest, and just it was just like nothing. I don't want to go to school. It's boring. It sucks. And I had 2 full ride scholarships. I got money back after everything was paid for, and I quit because like
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
not interested. Fast forward a few years. By the time I'm 24, I'm going through my second divorce. And I moved back here, no college degrees. My son was 4 at the time. So I was like, oh shit, I need to kind of get myself in order because
I need to lock in. I get that. Yeah.
so I was very fortunate. And I shared this story with my students. I was very fortunate when I moved back to Ohio. I got a job that I knew nothing. I was the most unqualified person for. They hired me because I had some basic computer skills, and I mean like what basic? Like I knew Microsoft Word and Excel. That's my basic skills. Like it was at an ATV dealership, and they hired me for the parts department. And I joke with my students. I was like, "Do you guys know what a spark plug is?" And most of them do. You know, you don't.
Maybe it's a language. I don't know. English is not my first language. There's words sometimes that I'm just like, okay, might be that. Might just be that I'm stupid. That there's 2 options here.
Well, that's fine because I didn't know what it is, and it's a part that goes in the engine, you know, to make things run, like in cars and ATVs and motorcycles and stuff. It helps spark something. That's the extent of my knowledge. But I didn't know what that was. Okay, and they hired me to work in the parts department. Yeah. So it was but it was a job, and I moved back here completely defeated. Like I said, going through my second divorce, and I was like, okay. And I learned so much working in that small business. I was there for about 10 years and altogether. And my boss also let me go back to school. It's like, hey, I need to go back to college because I need to make more money, you know, have a kid and all that stuff. And the person who was responsible for training me when I first started at that position, he jokes that the reason that he didn't get me fired was because he thought I was cute. That person is my husband now.
That's romantic, I think.
But during, you know, aside from getting a husband, a third time's the charm, evidently. You know what?
3 weddings, 3 dresses.
I was able to go back to school, and I got my associate's degree, and then got my bachelor's degree while working at that small business. And I learned so many things at that small business. And like he allowed me to grow as an employee and just learn different facets of the business. And it was, I encourage my students, if you ever get the opportunity to work in a small business, do it. The pay may suck, but you're going to learn so many other things. But the other thing that I learned over that experience is like my confidence grew while, when I was working and gained skill sets, and I gained, the confidence after gaining my degrees. And I was okay with failure, because previously I was like, I hated failure. I was like, I'm ashamed of failure. But as it was, the irony of growing and learning is like, you're okay with failure now because of the fact that, it's a process to learn. I tried to help my students like remember fail, FAIL is the first attempt in learning. And, just to kind of embrace failure is a learning process, and it's part of the learning process.
Yeah, no, I actually, so my background is, I think it's so interesting because like, you were able to sort of make a lot out of what your situation was. I relate to what you said of like not being interested in learning whatsoever. I was so like, I had a scholarship to Taiwan. So I graduated from high school and moved to Taiwan fresh out of it. I was 18 years old, practically a child. I had no idea what the choice I was making entailed. I just thought like, cool, I get to leave my parents' house and be myself, and I get to explore the world. I didn't even do any research on what life in Taiwan was like until I got there, and then I was kind of like slapped in the face with what it meant to move to the other side of the world. But I remember like in school, we had to learn Chinese for a year, and then we could enroll in college. That was like how the scholarship worked. I didn't care about learning Chinese, and I also did not care about learning in college. I'm really good with languages. Like I learned them pretty quickly. So I learned Chinese from like minimal effort and just moving around in the world. But I did not put nearly enough effort into it as I should have. I feel like once I was in college and like in classes, I also did not care. I think I took a degree out of just like, this is fine. And I think I always put enough effort to not get my scholarship taken away because I was having so much fun there so that I could keep having fun. But my priorities were never straight, and I never thought about what was going to happen after. I was just living day to day. And like you said, I think once I graduated, I'm like, I got a job, and then I'm at this desk that I'm super unqualified for. I was a sales rep for a company that was like importing and exporting grains, like basic grains. I didn't even understand the supply chain. I didn't know anything because it was so complicated. I was like, what the hell am I even doing? I had no skills. I didn't know anything. And I think sitting at that job, I was there for only like 3 months. It was terrible. I was so bad at it. There was a language barrier too, like a whole thing. And that's when I started to jump around from job to job. And I had to that's when I kind of entered this quarter life crisis of like, yeah, like you might still be young, but you're like, I was with the scholarship, I think I had this sense of I'm powerful because like, or freedom, I guess, because I kept getting money, like it just kept coming in every month. So I didn't have to worry about anything. I had like part-time jobs, but they were only to make extra money, to have more fun and travel and go out. Like it was never pressure. I never felt like I was having to worry about anything. And then once all of that was taken away from me, I was like, okay, now I have to sit down and think about my life. Yeah. And I think what you realize is how, like, I think especially with how the world works right now, how unqualified you are with a basic degree of like, I mean, I had a basic bachelor's degree. I studied international relations and diplomacy, so it had nothing to do with sales. And my degree, I started to think about, okay, what are jobs that I can actually get with this degree? Like, what do I even enjoy this? And And I really wish that I could go back to me at 18 and 17 and then kind of slap some sense into me and be like, you know what, it's cool to have fun, but also maybe think about your life a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, you just don't think about it. And I think the thing that slapped me in the face was just, okay, I have a 4-year-old and I need to, like, figure things out because I had no idea what's going on.
Yeah, you had I think for you it's like you had so much responsibility. So I imagine that you had to sort of figure out what to do.
But it's, and it was hard because, trying to, do everything with him, being everything that I needed to be for him, still mentally from my second marriage. And then, like, trying to go to school and, be on a super tight budget and all of those. I was really, really blessed and very fortunate about the fact that his paternal grandparents, I mean, they were the best babysitters. I was like, they would watch him. It was like, so I didn't have to worry about childcare. But, and I know I was super blessed and fortunate with that. But it was hard. And I think he was 14 when I finished my master's. And my plan was to go immediately with the doctorate because I figured out, like, kind of my groove. It's like I enjoyed it again. He was 14. I was 34, I think, when I finished my master's. And and I was like, I want to wait because he's 14. I only got 4 more years with him, until he's 18. And I was like, I'm going to wait on the doctorate. I'm just going to kind of put a pause on that. But, for that time, all that time that he, saw me going to schools, working sometimes 2 jobs at once. I cleaned banks. I worked at Dairy Queen. I worked, different types of jobs during that time. He saw me work, and I know he saw that. I had somebody tell me, this was years ago, that the reason that I have what I have now is because I'm lucky. And I got hot. I was like,
it's also work. Yeah, that's unfair.
And I told my son that's what somebody said. And this was his response. He's like, no, Mom, I saw you work hard. He's like, I saw you work hard the entire time. And you work very hard to have everything that you have, and you provided for me. And I'm like, so all in all, it was hard. But the fact that my child saw that, and then he went to, after a rough conversation of, like, figure out something after you graduate high school, or you're going to keep working at McDonald's, which he did not want to do. He went into the trades, and now he's an electrician. He makes good money. And he just passed one of his exams the other day. And one of the things that I've told him over the years is education equals opportunities. Education equals opportunities for financial well-being. It equals opportunities to break cycles of poverty, whether that be finances or your mindset. It equals opportunities for personal growth and all those different things that you want to do in your life. Education is the cornerstone to that. And so I used to tell him education equals opportunities all the time. And he would just kind of roll his eyes, because he was a teenager. But now he was like, okay, I see what you're saying now. I'm like, yeah. I was like, hey, listen to Mom. He's like, yes, I know you were right. Don't get too big ahead about it, but you were right.
Yeah, I think it's like a natural course of life. I think when you're so young, that's going to be it. And then once you sort of get older and you get slapped with real life stuff, then you're kind of like, okay, yeah, maybe that's true. So, I don't think that we're doomed for the future generations. There's probably a lot of them are going to grow out of whatever mindset they have.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They have whatever it is that tricks them. It's like, for me, it was my kid. Like, my kid's older now than, he's 25, and I was, 24 when I moved back here from Mississippi. And after all the things, and he was 4. So it was, yeah. I mean, I think something just needs to trick. Something needs to, like, flip the switch. For me, it was my kid. For him, it was like being on his own. And then I think I know his girlfriend has a big part in it. Kind of like, oh.
Yeah. She also has kids, so I'm imagining he has to see her, like, and everything that her parenting entails. Yeah, for me, it was also being on my own, like, kind of just like being truly on my own.
Yeah.
I also had a really bad breakup that kind of just made me have to grow up a lot because I was so depressed after it. And then I was like, okay, you need to pick yourself up. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's like a whole lot of things. I think that's a great note to end this podcast on of, growth. We kind of got a little bit derailed on the topic, but I had so much fun with you, Tasha. It was so great to have you today. And to everybody watching who would like to connect with you if we spoke about something today that resonated with them, learn more from you, I want to give you the space to tell them where they can go find you.
Yes. So I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me, just search for Tasha Penwell. That's really kind of the only, I have the other platforms. Facebook is the other one that I'm probably on the most, and actually kind of removed all social media from my phone just because it was so much of a time suck. I do have the accounts, but LinkedIn and Facebook are probably the best ones to try to find me on, and that I'll be, active on.
Awesome. Yeah, I will be adding the links to that on the description of the video so that people can easily find and connect with you. And thank you so much for being here, Tasha.
Okay, thank you.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest, and to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend, and of course, subscribe.